Thank you. Thank you very much. And welcome, everyone. I'd just like to start by saying that I'm going to touch on some of the messages that we've already learned and expand on some of them. Stories are one of the most powerful tools that we have to connect people, share knowledge, preserve experiences, and inspire change. Across cultures and generations, stories have shaped how we understand the world, build empathy, challenge assumptions, and motivate action. Today, anyone with a smartphone has the ability to tell a story that can reach audiences locally or around the world. But powerful storytelling is about far more than technology. It begins with curiosity, authenticity, careful listening, and a genuine respect for the people whose stories we choose to tell. Whether you're documenting your community, supporting an advocacy campaign, sharing lived experiences, or creating educational content, thoughtful storytelling has the power to amplify voices, influence conversations, and create lasting impact. I hope this workshop will inspire you to see storytelling not simply as a creative skill, but as a responsibility and an opportunity to create meaningful, ethical, and lasting change. Next slide, please. Well, you've already been introduced to who I am, so perhaps we could skip this slide for the sake of time. In this workshop, I'll show you how to transform ideas into compelling visual stories that inform, inspire, and create meaningful change. Together, we'll explore the hero's journey as a powerful storytelling framework. Learn the fundamentals of storyboarding, discover how to align stories with campaign goals, and begin developing your own story concept to bring your message to life. Beyond storytelling techniques, we'll also examine the ethical responsibilities of filmmakers, including ethics and respect, power and representation, digital stewardship, story ownership, ongoing consent, the right to be forgotten, collaborative editorial processes, and ethical considerations after publication. By the end of the workshop, you'll have the tools to create stories that are not only engaging and impactful, but also ethical, respectful, and accountable to the people and communities they represent. Next slide, please. Great stories don't just capture attention, they create impact. Every story should have a clear purpose and contribute to the broader goals of your campaign. When storytelling is intentional, it helps audiences understand an issue, connect emotionally, and feel inspired to take action. Before you start, ask yourself, what is the purpose of this campaign? Who are we trying to reach? What change are we hoping to achieve? What action do we want our audience to take? Effective stories can raise awareness of important issues, challenge perceptions, and influence behavior, build empathy and human connection, inspire participation and collective action, strengthen support for a cause or movement, and amplify the voices of individuals and communities. Remember, every story should move your audience one step closer to your campaign's goal, from awareness to understanding to action. Next slide, please. Thank you. Impactful stories are often constructed with what is known as the hero's journey. This is a storytelling framework in which a character leaves their ordinary world, faces challenges, learns important lessons, and returns transformed. The simple structure of a hero's journey includes a challenge. The hero encounters a problem, obstacle, or opportunity that disrupts their normal life. The journey. The hero takes action, faces setbacks, learns lessons, and perseveres through challenges. The transformation. Through these experiences, the hero grows, gains new knowledge, skills, or confidence, and changes in a meaningful way. And the impact. The hero uses what they have learned to create positive change for themselves, their community, or the world around them. This framework helps create stories that are engaging, relatable, and inspiring because audiences connect with the hero's growth and achievements. Next slide, please. Once you've identified your hero's journey, the next step is to create a storyboard. A storyboard is a visual blueprint for your film. It breaks your story into a sequence of scenes, allowing you to plan how your story will unfold before you begin filming. Each frame represents a key moment and includes what the audience will see and hear. This may include simple sketches, dialogue or interview quotes, camera shots, movement, sound, and notes about the action taking place. Don't worry about your artistic ability. Storyboards are planning tools, not works of art. Simple stick figures and rough sketches are often all you need. The goal is to communicate ideas clearly, not create perfect drawings. Storyboarding helps you organize your thoughts, identify missing scenes, plan transitions, and ensure your story flows logically. It also makes filming more efficient by helping everyone involved understand the vision before production begins, saving time and reducing the need for unnecessary reshoots. Remember, a good storyboard does not need to look beautiful. It needs to make your story clear. Next slide, please. Before you start filming, remember that great storytelling is about people, not perfection. The most powerful stories are created when participants feel safe, respected, and genuinely heard. Focus on creating a welcoming, collaborative environment where people feel comfortable sharing their experiences in their own words. A few simple filming techniques can also make a big difference. Use natural light whenever possible to create a warm, authentic look. Keep your camera steady and frame your subject clearly. Leave a little space above the person's head and avoid cutting off faces. Film a wide variety of wide shots, medium shots, and close-ups to make your story more visually engaging. Capture B-roll footage, which is footage of everyday activities, locations, details, and surroundings to help illustrate your story. Pay attention to background noise and visual distractions that may interfere with the message. Whenever possible, record in landscape or horizontal format, unless your content is specifically intended for social media platforms that use vertical video. Most importantly, Be patient. Give participants time to think, speak naturally, and tell their stories in their own voice. Remember, authenticity is always more powerful than perfection. A sincere story filmed with care will have far greater impact than a technically perfect film that lacks genuine human connection. Next slide, please. At the heart of ethical filmmaking is respect for the dignity, autonomy, and lived experiences of participants. Individuals who choose to share their stories are not merely subjects or sources of content. They are collaborators whose perspectives, well-being, and agency deserve to be protected throughout the filming process. Respect involves listening without imposing preconceived narratives, acknowledging participants as experts in their own lives, avoiding exploitation of vulnerability for emotional or dramatic effect, ensuring participation is genuinely voluntary and free from coercion, recognizing cultural differences, traditions, and community values. Ethical filmmakers ask not only, can this story be told, but also should it be told, by whom, and in what way? Next slide, please. Story ownership asks a fundamental question: who owns someone's story? Traditional filmmaking has generally assumed that once participants sign a release, the filmmaker owns the resulting film and editorial decisions. Participatory and decolonial filmmaking challenge this assumption by recognizing that participants retain a moral relationship to their own experiences, even if copyright belongs to the filmmaker. Story ownership therefore emphasizes recognizing participants as experts on their own lives, acknowledging community knowledge rather than extracting it, avoiding narratives that reinforce stereotypes, ensuring stories are represented accurately and respectfully, considering whether participants should share decision-making authority over how their stories are presented. Rather than viewing participants as subjects, this approach treats them as collaborators and co-creators. Next slide, please. Filmmakers inevitably hold significant power through decisions about editing, narration, music, and distribution. Ethical practice requires continual reflection on how this power shapes representation. This includes considering whose voices are amplified or omitted, whether editing creates misleading impressions, whether participants are portrayed with complexity rather than stereotype, whether cultural contexts are represented accurately, whose perspective ultimately defines the narrative. Responsible filmmakers acknowledge that editing is not a neutral process, but one that actively constructs meaning. Next slide, please. Traditional editing concentrates creative authority almost entirely in the hands of the director and editor. Collaborative editorial processes redistribute some of this authority. This does not necessarily mean participants make every editorial decision. Rather, it may involve screening rough cuts for participants, inviting feedback on factual accuracy, discussing how individuals are portrayed, incorporating community perspectives into narrative development, allowing participants to identify potentially harmful representations, acknowledging multiple interpretations rather than imposing a single authoritative narrative. Collaborative editing often improves both ethical integrity and factual accuracy while strengthening trust between filmmakers and communities. Next slide, please. Digital stewardship is the ongoing responsibility to care for all digital materials generated during a film project, not only by preserving them technically, but by managing them in ways that respect participants, protect sensitive information, and maintain the integrity of the work over time. This includes secure storage of raw footage, audio, photographs, transcripts, and consent forms, multiple encrypted backups and long-term archival strategies, metadata management, documenting who appears in footage, when and where it was filmed, applicable permissions and restrictions on use, access protocols determining who can view, edit, download, or redistribute materials, preservation planning so files remain usable despite technological change, ethical management of sensitive materials, particularly when filming marginalized or vulnerable communities. Digital stewardship recognizes that filmmakers become custodians of people's lives, memories, and identities, not simply owners of digital files. Next slide, please. Traditional consent is often obtained once before filming begins. Ongoing consent recognizes that consent is a continuous process rather than a single signed document. People's circumstances change. A participant who was comfortable appearing in a local documentary may later become uncomfortable if the film receives international distribution, appears on streaming platforms, or is widely shared on social media. Ongoing consent involves checking in with participants throughout production, discussing significant editorial changes, informing participants about new methods of distribution, allowing participants opportunities to raise concerns, recognizing that consent is relational rather than merely contractual. This approach is particularly important when filming children, Indigenous communities, survivors of violence, patients, refugees, or individuals discussing highly personal experiences. Next slide, please. The right to be forgotten originates primarily from privacy law, especially the General Data Protection Regulation, also known as GDPR. But its ethical implications extend into filmmaking. It recognizes that individuals may wish to have personal information removed from public circulation when continued availability causes harm or no longer serves a legitimate purpose. Within film projects, this raises difficult questions. Should participants be allowed to withdraw archived footage years later? Can interview clips be removed from future editorial editions? What happens if someone later faces political persecution because of their appearance in a documentary? How should filmmakers respond if publication unnecessarily causes distress? Complete removal is not always legally or practically possible, particularly after theatrical release or broadcast. But ethical filmmaking increasingly considers mechanisms for responding compassionately when participants' circumstances change. Next slide, please. Ethical responsibilities do not end when the credits roll. Increasingly, documentary scholars argue that filmmakers retain responsibilities long after release. These responsibilities may include monitoring unintended consequences. Has the film exposed participants to harassment? Has media attention created risks the filmmakers did not anticipate? Managing relationships. Continuing communication with communities after festivals and broadcasts. Sharing updates about screenings or educational use. Benefit sharing. Ensuring communities receive copies of the film. Supporting local screenings. Sharing educational materials or financial benefits where appropriate. Responding to changing circumstances. Revisiting content if footage is repurposed. Respecting requests regarding future distribution when feasible. Updating contextual information if circumstances change significantly. Responsible archiving. Ensuring future researchers understand the context in which footage was created. Protecting sensitive materials from misuse. Planning for stewardship beyond the filmmaker's lifetime or organization. Taken together, these principles represent a broader ethical shift in filmmaking. Instead of treating participants as sources of content, they recognize them as ongoing partners whose dignity, autonomy, and relationship to their stories continue long after filming has ended. The filmmaker's role becomes not only that of storyteller, but also of steward, someone entrusted with preserving digital materials responsibly, sharing editorial authority where appropriate, respecting evolving consent, and remaining accountable for the social consequences of the work over time. This approach is particularly influential in participatory filmmaking, visual anthropology, indigenous media, community arts, and health communication, where long-term trust and reciprocal relationships are often as important as the finished film itself. Next slide, please. Facts may inform, but stories move people. Long after statistics and presentations are forgotten, people remember how a story made them feel. The most powerful stories are not the most polished. They are the most authentic. They come from genuine experience, honest voices, and a willingness to connect with others through empathy and truth. As you begin developing your own story, don't focus on making it perfect. Focus on making it real. The stories that create lasting impact are those that are told with authenticity, respect, and purpose. This is your opportunity to share a story that informs, inspires, and sparks meaningful change. Your voice is unique. Your perspective matters. Now it's time to tell your story. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katherine. Can I have some appreciation emojis for Katherine? Appreciation emojis for Katherine? Thank you so much. I really love what you said about a good storyboard is not just about it looking beautiful, but then very important that the story is clear. So that's why you need to draw the storyboard to make sure that your story is clear. And you've even emphasized more getting to the end that it's not just about the facts, but about how you end up making people feel, because that's what will make them move to act, and that's how impact will be achieved. So thank you so much. And we have some few minutes to ask questions. We can leave it in the chat or unmute yourself and ask Katherine questions. Any questions for Katherine? Even as we wait for people to ask, Katherine, you could also leave how people can connect with you. You could leave it in the chat.
Absolutely. I'll leave it in the chat.
So any questions for Katherine before we move to the next session? Any questions or contributions to the session? Okay, thank you so much, Katherine. Thank you so much. So,
thank you.
Has someone unmuted?
Yeah.
Okay,
John here.
Yes.
A quick one. How can we make a story concise while still keeping it engaging and authentic?
So John says, yeah.
That's a very good question. And the key to that is to make a storyboard. With a storyboard, you can ensure that you focus on the most important message, the most important bits of the message that you want to convey. So storyboarding is everything when you're creating content for social media, for example. You only have a few seconds to convey a message or a story, and that's where storyboarding is very helpful.